I live in Utah. That's the picture on my backyard. Not this week though. That was over the winter. So how many of you have installed wireless? Good, you're my audience. How many have installed wireless well? How many have ever had a wireless issue? Great. What we're going to talk about today is how to not have a wireless problem. Anybody want to learn that? How to not have a wireless problem? Anybody want to learn how to not have a wireless problem? That's for the recording, by the way. Okay, so how you not have a wireless problem is you fix the problem before it becomes wireless. Because what happens is once there's a wireless is installed and running and someone takes their phone and says, oh, wireless isn't broken. It's a wireless problem and you have to troubleshoot wireless, which is way harder than troubleshooting wire. So my recommendation is, do you really have a wireless problem? For the last 15 years of my life, I've focused 100% of my work life on wireless networking. Less than 2% of the time I get called out for a problem is it an actual wireless issue. 98% of the time, it's something was wrong with the wire. So I figured out a way to help make wireless problems go away. First, you have to make sure the wire is okay. It's not that hard. I use something like this. This is called a Lynde Sprinter. It's only $200, $300 if you want to link to an iPhone or an Android phone. And this one little device easily fits in your budget and will help solve all your wireless problems. And it's not even wireless. You could also use a Fluke Link Runner AT. That's what I used for a long time, but they're about $1,500. They do a slightly better job, but it costs 5 times more, so the Link Sprinter is a good way to go. So here's what you want to do. And this is what I teach all my installers when they go out and they're installing wireless networks. Before you put an AP on a cable, make sure the cable meets all the specs you need. 2, make sure it supports a gig connection, because all APs you're going to be installing from now on the rest of your life need at least a minimum of a gig connection. Confirm that the power coming out of the PoE port meets the specs for the AP. Some APs need AT power, some need AF power, some need PoE plus, but before you put the AP on, make sure the power is right. Because the AP will work, it just won't work well. So what we want to make sure is everything on the wired side is where it's supposed to be. Confirm DHCP, DNS, subnet masks, everything that has to do with the wired port is working, again, before you put the AP on. The cable has to be working properly. Document the switch port that it's on. Port access, you might use LLDP to figure that out or use a little tool. Test DNS to make sure DNS is doing what it's supposed to do. Ping the default gateway, ping the other side of the default gateway. I want to make sure the gateway is working too, that the router is doing what it's supposed to be doing. And then if you have a controller, or if you're running Arrowhive or you have a WNMS, make sure you can hit whatever the AP needs to hit in order to do its job. And what are the VLANs that are on that cable? I would say easily half of every wireless problem I've ever troubleshot was the VLAN was assigned wrong. And that's not a wireless problem, but it shows up as a wireless problem because the users can't get to the things they need to get to, and so they complain. And the last one here is you've got to have a management VLAN for managing your wireless LANs. That's it. 10 little steps. It takes, with this little device, 15 seconds, 20 seconds. 20 seconds per port, and you can solve 98% of your wireless problems for $300. It's that simple. Now, after you've made sure the wired port's doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing, and by the way, do you know what it's supposed to be doing? A lot of people are going on just saying, well, I'm putting my APs on my network. Well, what do you want them to do? Have it documented before you do that so you can answer all those questions. Now that the wire is perfect, it does exactly what you want it to do, now you can put the AP on. Plug the AP in, wait. Yeah, wait. because you've got to wait for the AP to go back, find the controller, make sure it has the right rev, and it's going to go through. It might even do a couple reboot cycles depending on which AP vendor you have. And when you're done, document the AP's MAC address, where it is, its location, its port, everything about the AP. So in the future, if you do have to troubleshoot wireless, you at least know what's where. It's in the right orientation. Anyone notice APs have Ethernet ports on them? Ethernet ports on an AP cause a shadow to the RF. So if you rotate them, that shadow that goes on where the Ethernet port will leave a little dent in your coverage hole. So make sure that that's not pointing to some place that's important. They wait, you get their configuration, everything's ready, and when you're done, now you can test the wireless. In the wireless, you have to test all the same things you tested in wired. Are all the SSIDs available? Can I see them all? If I get attached, am I in the right subnet? Am I getting the right VLAN? Right now, before you let clients get on, make sure that the wireless is doing just what it's supposed to do. And amazingly, when you're all done, it works. Just like wired ports work when you do them correctly. So, now we get to the troubleshooting. Sorry, something in Illinois has caused my allergies to go off, and it's almost winter. Who would have thought maybe I'm just allergic to Illinois. I don't know. This is how a client will join the network. It goes through these phases. First, there's an association phase. This is how a client joins an access point. It goes probe request, probe response. Authentication request, authentication response. Association request, association response. It takes those 6 frames every time a client's going to join or change APs. The last one, association response, is the AP telling the client, here, you're number 13. You're in my association table. I will bridge for you any frame that comes on my Ethernet port. I'll send it wirelessly to you. That's what the association frame's saying. And the association request that the client says is, I hereby swear to use your BSSID, your MAC address, in every data frame I ever send. So they make this negotiation between the two of them. When they're done doing this association, it is exactly the same as the Ethernet port getting a link light. Association is to wireless what a link light is to wired. If you had a link light on a network, would you troubleshoot up the stack or down the stack? Up, because you know the down stack's working. If you're associated, you don't look wireless, you look wired. Association is that little trigger point. Then after we associate, we authenticate. Could be open, like a hotspot, could be PSK, could be 802.1x. Note, I made authentication and encryption 2 separate things because in Wi-Fi they are. In Wi-Fi marketing, they're not. Wi-Fi marketing says, we have WPA2. What does that mean? Nothing. It's marketing terms. What happens in the Wi-Fi NIC and in the AP is it goes association, authentication. If we pass authentication, then we turn on encryption. You could actually run WPA2 with no encryption. It's one of the options. It's a silly option, but it's possible because there's 2 separate things. So when we're troubleshooting, we want to troubleshoot authentication separate than encryption. And then when we're done doing all those pieces, then we can go get an IP address and DNS and DHCP and all those little issues that happen. So if you have an IP address on your client device, you don't have a wireless problem. If the client sees your captive portal pops up on the screen, how did it get there? They associated, they authenticated, they encrypted, they got a DHCP address, they got an IP address, they attempted to do something. Then the captive portal redirected you to the captive portal page, and the screen actually came across wireless to the device. You don't have a wireless problem. You might have a captive portal problem. So when it comes to troubleshooting and solving wireless issues, think, what's it actually doing, and then you'll know where in the process to make the difference. By the way, I hate captive portals. Anybody use captive portals? Do this if you do. Take your finger. Does anyone like captive portals? No. So why do we use them? Lawyers. It's the lawyers. And they're wrong. They want us to use them so they can get paid. Disney, with billions of dollars and a legal team probably bigger than this whole room, they don't need captive portals, so why do we? So if your wireless client has an IP address, you don't have a wireless problem. If your wireless client can be pinged, you don't have a wireless problem. Done. Did I make it in 10 minutes? 15 seconds to spare.
Well, good morning. My name is Logan McCoy. I'm with a company called CCB. We're based in Racine, Wisconsin, but I'm actually originally from Bloomington Normal, Illinois. Is Eastview Christian Church here, by the way? Yeah, it's my home church. When I ever go home, that's where I go. So today I'm going to be talking about Office 365. Now, here's the thing I know. I know a number of you probably are already very aware of what is Office 365. Some of you might actually even be running Office 365 currently, right? But I'm going to use this time because I only have 10 minutes to really use it as a kind of 101 session, right? So for those of you that do know it or you're already using it, hopefully you glean one or two nuggets from me. But really my target for many of you is if you're not aware of it, let this be kind of a nice, easy intro into what exactly it is, right? So looking at the agenda that I'm going to talk about in these 10 minutes, I'm going to give you a brief overview of what exactly it is. I'm going to talk about some new features that came out in the last iteration, which has actually been a while now. And then most importantly, talk about nonprofit pricing and what that looks like for you guys as you guys do qualify for that. There we go. So Office 365, as we kind of call it within CCB, Microsoft's cloud-based subscription, right? Contains four pillars that's what we refer to it as, right? The first one, when I ask a lot of customers or clients, so what exactly, when you hear 365, do you think it is? Like, well, I think it's probably just an Office subscription, right? Most of them, I'll come back and I'll say, you're exactly right. That is a key component of what is Office 365, right? Because depending on which edition you get, you either get a full version of Office that you can install locally on a client, up to 5 devices per user, which is phenomenal. Or if you get a different edition, you get what they call Office web apps, right? Which is what you can access through a browser, right? So Office definitely being a key component of Office 365. But the other three main pillars, you've got Exchange, SharePoint, and Lync. Now, a beautiful thing within Exchange is that for each user, whether you're on the free plan or the $4.50 plan, you get 50 gigs of storage per user, which is just phenomenal, right? Because I know before we actually internally moved from an on-prem Exchange into Office 365, we were often running into storage issues with PST files and things of that nature, right? You get anti-spam, anti-malware, all those kinds of things built in. And on top of that, depending on which edition you get, you also get things like DLP, e-discovery, archiving, so on and so forth, right? Most of us know then what SharePoint is, right? It's that document repository and collaboration tool, right? It's a beautiful thing that Microsoft has bundled into the Office 365 suite, right? And then last but not least, you get Lync as well, right? That kind of UC type tool that gives you messaging, presence, video web conferencing, all of that kind of good stuff. So some of the new features that they came out with in their last iteration, you guys remember mentioning that with an Exchange, you get 50 gigs of storage no matter what edition you're actually going with. That it used to only be 25. And so they've massively updated that from just 25 gigs now to 50 gigs. OneDrive, which is more or less a personal storage drive for each of your users. So if they're using Dropbox or Google Drive, so on and so forth, within just OneDrive, they're getting 1 terabyte of storage, right? So they can do Word, Excel, PDF, photos, all that kind of stuff they can store personally, yet they can still share it, right? Which is a great thing to do. If they want to share specific files or photos, they can do that no problem. It also includes Office for iPad, iPhone, Android, so not just kind of the viewing of those documents, but actually, on top of that, being able to edit those if need be. It includes, like I referenced earlier in some editions, DLP or data loss prevention, so if a number of you have to be PCI compliant for varying reasons, that's built into certain features and additions within 365. I think Travis is going to talk in a little bit about Dirsync, which a lot of people love because it means they don't have to set up ADFS necessarily, which is a nice blessing. And then I missed one as well, but Office 365 message encryption. So you can encrypt both internal and external messages. Let's go to the next one here. Whoop, thank you. And I'm done. No, I'm just kidding. So I know this might be hard for you guys to see, but kind of just getting really quickly into what are the varying Office 365 plans that are eligible for you guys to take advantage of when I refer to it from a nonprofit pricing standpoint. There's really 4 main suites that Microsoft has kind of bundled into the nonprofit pricing program. They've got we have it labeled as small business. It's actually for you guys nonprofit essentials. Then they have small business premium or nonprofit premium. They have enterprise E1 and enterprise E3. Basically, the difference between these and these, just to let you know, between the platforms is it's no longer 25 users as the maximum. They just upgraded that to 300 users. But here you still have a limitation of a maximum of 300 users. Here, there's no limitation under the enterprise platforms, right? Between these two, the biggest difference is that with one, you get that full Office application, so Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, all that kind of wonderful stuff we love working with. Within this plan, you don't get that, right? You still get email, SharePoint, link, and all of them. A key thing that you don't get within this, though, is AD integration. So if you guys need that, which I'm sure a number of you guys do, I would not consider these. I would look either to the E1 or the E3 plan. So between these two, the main differences between these are within the E1, you're not getting that full version of Office like you are in what they call their E3 plan. You're also not getting some of those additional features that could be specifically related to Exchange. So things like advanced email, that e-discovery, the DLP, some of those things I was talking about, right? Now, the pricing structure within these, under the nonprofit essentials, it's actually free for you guys. Under the nonprofit premium, it's $2 per user per month. Under the E1 plan, it's free. So I'm not really sure why they even have this, because you can just go straight to this and you're still not paying anything. So what we actually see a lot of churches doing is if they have heavy Office users, you can definitely use either or, right? They just made a provision where you can actually go across platform. It used to be you could only stick within one specific platform. But if you've got 300 staff members, you could have 250 of them using E1 and 50 that you really need that Office application using E3, right? Because that price for E3 is $4.50 per user per month. Now, something that Microsoft doesn't highlight is that they do have a couple a la carte options as well. So they have what they call Exchange Online Archiving, which are basically these features down here at the very bottom. That's a $1 per user per month. We have a lot of users who are saying, hey, Logan, so really we just need E1, but we'd love to get the Office application. So Microsoft also has a provision where you can buy just a license of Office Pro Plus. It's a subscription. It's $2 per user per month. So what you're going to get then is that E1, which is exactly what you need, but instead of having to pay that $4.50 if you don't need those features, but you need Office, you can just add that on to it and still get Office for those users that need it, right? Now, within SharePoint, one of the things that Microsoft gives you is for your organization, they give you 10 gigs of storage, then each additional user gets their own half gig, right? One of the big things, though, is most users are going to use over 10 gigs of storage, right? So Microsoft has a provision as well for nonprofits that for 20 cents, you can add additional gigs for your organization as needed, right, if you guys need to do that. So I think I'm actually ending a little bit early, ending about 3 minutes early, but that's pretty much it. So thank you.
I still got 2 minutes and 45 seconds to set up my VGA cable. There we go. How's everybody doing? You all right? Good. Well, I'm going to kind of take a little bit of a turn here. I think anybody that kind of knows Lynde Consulting knows us. I don't really have anything smart to tell you, anything too profound, but what I wanted to talk about today is the competency of human connection. In a very connected world, what does it really mean what does it really look like as the world gets more and more technical? What does it look like to connect with people's hearts? Because all of you in this room, you didn't get into IT in the church to get rich. You got into IT in the church for one reason, which is you want to expand the kingdom of God. And sometimes in that world, what happens is people look at you as somebody that actually just does something for them. They don't look at you as the person you really are at times. You came and fixed their computer. You do something really well. But a lot of times, they don't take a lot of time to get to know who you are. So I'm just going to take a little, because what I can do best to maybe connect with you a little bit, let me tell you a little about me. What was your name, sir? The pink shirt, I'm sorry. And your iPhone 6 Plus that you can barely type on. What was your name? Keith, okay. Keith showed a picture of his backyard, so what I want to do is kind of trump him. This is my backyard in the fall. That's my yard. That's the Blue Ridge Mountains in Georgia. I moved from Rockford, Illinois to actually get to that, okay? We have offices in Rockford, but I moved to go there because what my office view is a cornfield. Now it's actually a mountain, which is nice, right? Another way I'm just going to be vulnerable, right? Part of human connection is being vulnerable with people. Let them see sides you no one else will ever see. This is me without my front teeth. You're supposed to laugh. It's actually okay. Go ahead. It's a true story. This is a true story. I have a bridge that's here, and every 10 years that cost me about $7,000 to get that fixed, okay? That 10-year expired about 4 months ago, so I'm $7,000 poorer because now I have new teeth. But they look good. Look at that. See? Here you go. Faux pas number 1, never speak with gum in your mouth. The next person, you might want to take this away when I leave. Okay. The power of human connection. My gum's here. Make sure you don't touch it. Here we go. This is my wife. I've been married to my wife now for 15 years. I met her on July 10th, 1995. It's the night I gave my life to Christ as well. We went to church. I went to the front row. I found the 3 prettiest girls in the room, hit them on the whole service. At the end, I gave my life to Christ, and I found my wife. That's how God works, okay? That is the power of human connection. She connected with me. I connected with her. We now have a litter of children, okay? This is my wife with our oldest daughter, Ainsley. She's 12. If you're from Chicago, that's where I'm religious. Rockford Portillo's, that's the jam. That's a chocolate cake shake, just so you know. About another way, listen, here's the point of human connection. Some of you that aren't from Chicago never had Portillo's, but those of you right now, we instantly have a connection if you've had a chocolate cake shake at Portillo's. How many of you have had a chocolate cake shake? You now have a deeper affinity for me as a human being. Because we've shared something of common interest. This expands across reality. It's the power of human connection. I've had 5 kids. You ever been in fathers, right? You're in the waiting room, the holding room until you get to go into the room because my wife had C-section. So there's like this holding room where you got these blue outfit on, you got a mask on, you're waiting to go into the thing. And there's this other poor schlub husband for his first kid. I've got 5. So this poor guy over here is his first experience, right? And but by the way, that guy, you look up, you're getting ready to experience something, the greatest moment of your life. I don't know this guy from Adam. But he looks up. Instant connection. Because he knows what we're about to go through. It's the power of human connection. Have you ever been in a waiting room in a hospital and you're waiting up maybe a sick relative or something? Or your wife's battled cancer like mine has, or your dad's battling cancer now like mine is. And you went to the cancer center and you see relatives waiting for their people to come out. You never shared a word with them, but you make eye contact and you just know. There's a connection. It's how God wired us. It's the power. So in a connected world, you guys are not known for blinking lights. That's not who you are. That's what you do. So don't ever lose sight in the midst of you fixing somebody's computer and doing these things. Don't ever lose sight of the fact why you're there. The greatest gift you can give somebody is not fixing their computer. The greatest gift you can give somebody is still you. The power of human connection. It's the way God wired us. Check this out. We'll carry on. This is me getting wild with my 2 daughters. They're so unique. For those of you, once again, another point of human, if you have a daughter, you know what this feels like right here. To be munched in the middle, like, Dad, take a funny picture. Like, I got a double chin, my beard, I'm not shaved. Look at the trash cans empty in the back, clothes everywhere. It's like, you know what this is like, Dad? There's no greater feeling. The power of human connection. This is my little Addie. She's one of our twins. She spent 17 days in the NICU. My wife was on bed rest for quite some time. If any of you have twins in here, right now you know what it's like. I have a 12, a 10, an 8-year-old, and 3-year-old twin girls. They were our little special surprises. I don't know how this stuff happens. My friends keep trying to tell me how it happens. I don't know what's going on. But the point is, If you have a set of twins, guess what right now? There's a point of human connection with me. You just know. I don't have to share it with you. You know the beauty of it. You know the chaos of it. You know the nights you get teared up because as a father, you don't know how you're going to do it. Because of the way you were raised and what you'd been through. I come from a broken home. My mom died in my arms when I was 9. It's like my parents were divorced. My dad's a recovering alcoholic. I led my dad to Christ on a road after I bailed him out of jail after his 4th DUI. If you've ever been through that, we have a connection. And now as a father and a husband, I'm trying to do the best I can, but I'm imperfect. This is my Arlie. She's the most flexible girl because I swear the whole time in the pregnancy she was pinned at the bottom of the uterus. And she literally still can wrap her legs around her neck. She's so fun. She's so wild. We have to put a tent on her crib. We have to put a fortress on her crib so she can't get out. She refuses. The scariest night of my life. How much time do I have left? There's no timer. I'm doing so good they never even gave me a timer. This is amazing. Are you keeping time? I'm not. I mean, so tell me when I'm done. So Arlie got 3 minutes. So what I got? Oh, man, I got to go. Funny story. So Arlie, twin, she gets out of the crib. She runs out. I find her. We have a pond in our backyard. She's 2. She's in the middle of the winter. She wanders outside. Scariest moment of my life. But she's unique. She's a unique little girl. This is my 3 oldest at the Lincoln Park Zoo. One of the coolest pictures I ever took. I'm not a photographer. But, like, they're making eye contact, that polar bear, and he's like, I'm hungry. He's making a connection with those kids. This is my Abram. She's my middle. She's amazing. She's the sweetest girl on the planet. Such a lover, such a hugger. You know, my oldest is 12 now. She's kind of going through that transition, you know. So she's not as snuggly, but my little Abram, she's a little snuggle bug. This is them all in a row here. I saw 5 of them. This is my dad about 5 months ago with my oldest. My dad's a great-grandpa right now. He loves them, comes and visit. He's retired. As I told you, my dad's been battling stage 4A cancer. I live in Atlanta. We decided to move. Me and my dad have a different connection now than we've ever had. I stayed at his house. I came home 2 days early to stay with him. He woke me up 2 times in the middle of the night just because he wanted someone to be by him. It's my dad. Blue collar as they come. Rough, man, tough guy. Iron worker. This is my dad now. Fighting for his life. Once again, right now, any of you that ever went through cancer or a family, like, we have an instant connection right now. I don't have to tell you. And this is what I'll finish with. What I just did right now is the greatest thing you can still do in your work. Find ways to connect with people like you never have before. When you fix their laptop, take time to tell them something. Like, ask them a question you might not be comfortable asking. Naturally, most of you are introverted. So a lot of times we don't get to experience the best of you because you are at best sometimes when you're by yourself. But in the kingdom of God and what you do, the greatest thing you can give, the gift you can give those you're around is still you. And don't ever forget that. You know, the pastors, they'll get the accolades. Great message. Oh, you shared that was so good. Boom, bam. You fix their laptop. It's like, sweet, good job. Good job doing your job. But still, the greatest gift you can give somebody is you. So I want to leave you with this. Is don't ever forget, in the midst of a world of connectivity and all these technologies we learn about, all these things we do, it's like the connection between the heart and what we do as followers of Christ is the greatest thing we can always search to give someone else. It's a piece of who we are and find a way to embrace them where they're at. So I want to leave you with that. Thanks so much for letting us be a part. We really enjoy being a part of this. We love all you guys. Seriously, we do. I've known a lot of you, and if I haven't met you yet, shake our hands. We're not here to talk about our company right now. I just want to tell you, man, we're just really excited to be a part of this team. We're really excited for what you do. So I pray the rest of the week goes good for you guys. Have a great time.
Hear this? Okay, good. Hey, my name's Chris Rivers. I'm super pumped to be here. I'm really glad to be. This is my first conference, so y'all excited for me? Yeah. So, all right, so I'm the founder of Culture Bus, which is very unique, but you can go check us out online. But before that, I had the opportunity to do a lot of other things. I've been in this area of field for about last 7 years, really. I've been a part of companies like Secure Give and Arena in the Arena days when I used to work with Arena. I've worked at New Spring Church, and I've also had the opportunity to work with Enjoy Stewardship Solutions. So the Lord's given me a lot of cool opportunities to be on the front row seat of the challenge that comes with transferring vision to your team and creating all kinds of process and culture and leadership development. And so, man, I'm just super glad to be here today because I feel like I'm in a room with a bunch of guys and a bunch of women that are making a difference in the church. And so what I want to do today is I really want to kind of talk about how to make an impact on your culture from behind the scenes. So this is a big deal. Culture is something that I'm really, really passionate about, and so this is a big topic. And so this is a picture of my family. I've got 2 older boys and a daughter. This is a picture of us up in the Adirondacks up in New York. Anybody here from the Adirondacks? Okay, well, too bad for y'all. But anyways, we go up there. For the past 11 years, I've traveled up to the Adirondacks. I take a week off every year. I go up there. I disconnect from technology, from the internet, and I just kind of get in the woods with my family, and we just chill. I mean, it's like the most awesome thing in the world, and I really value this time. We all value different things. Would you agree? Some of us value college football. Any Clemson fans in here? Okay, yeah, come on. Some of us value just a good book. You just like getting in front of a book and just devouring that bad boy and, reading another one. Some of us actually value PCs, right? Some of us value Macs. We all have different things that we value, right? So here's the deal. Everyone values something, right? Would you agree with that? Raise your hand if you agree with me, right? Okay, so here's a couple things that I value. Starbucks coffee in a French press. Oh my gosh, that's my love. I like that guy right over there. Okay, so that's my love language in the morning. This is my favorite thing. I've probably broken maybe 20 of these things, but regardless, it's my favorite. I also value Chick-fil-A. Anybody value Chick-fil-A, right? Okay, so I love it, what it does to my wallet. I can walk in there with my family. It only costs me under $30. I get good service. They follow me. Can I help you? My pleasure. All that jazz. Here's another thing I value. I value the church. And I would agree, I bet that every single person in this room values the church as well, right? So what do you value, right? This is a big question. I'd love for you to walk away from this time in my session just, hey, what do you value? Because this is what I realize. Our lives will reflect what we value, number 1, okay? Number 2, our lives will reflect who we value. Right? So what does this have to do with, making an impact on our culture from behind the scenes? Well, I think it's important for us to focus on this word value, right? So what I want to do is I'm really quick in the next 6.5 minutes, break down each letter. So let's talk about the first letter V, okay? So victory, right? This is a word that I try to focus as much of attention as I can. Now the victory has been won, right? The tomb is empty. Jesus has conquered the grave. Okay, let me say that again. The tomb is empty, right? Jesus has conquered the grave. Guys, we get paid to do what we do because the tomb is empty, right? We get to serve people in a way that is beyond anything that we could ever ask or imagine. It's an immeasurably more type thing. And when we focus on this word, it changes everything we do. This is a picture of my pastor, Perry Noble, one of the greatest leaders I've ever met in my life. He's right in front of the tomb in Jerusalem. And if you know Perry, he's not really good at taking pictures. So, this picture right here is proof that he's happy. He's not happy because he's in Jerusalem hanging out. He's happy because he's at the tomb, right? And so this is what I've learned about victory, is that when I focus on the victory, it gives me confidence, right? Many times we struggle in ministry because we have so much conflict, right? We struggle in this area, but let me tell you what I've realized about this confidence thing and focusing on victory. It's not what I know, but it's who I know that moves me from conflict to confidence. I'll say that again. It's not what I know, but who I know that moves me from conflict to confidence. It changes my step. So here's a question. When was the last time you put focus on the victory? And I tell you, if you do this, it will impact your culture from behind the scenes. Okay, I got to speed up here. Let's talk about the next letter, A, amazed. Okay, I've recently studied the book of Mark, and it's really cool, but there's actually 18 references of the word amazed in Mark, okay? And every single time, it is a direct connection of someone just spending time with Jesus. Now, this is really, really amazing, right? When you look through the New Testament, you see words like astonished and wow, and Jesus is this guy that just comes into the scene and just wows us with who he is. So here's a question that I have for you. Are you spending time with Jesus every day? Are you opening up the Bible and actually spending time with him? Because I promise if you do, you will walk away amazed, just like those people in Mark, right? And as you do that, it's going to impact your culture in a way that creates a vibrant area for people that want to be a part of it, right? Okay, so the next letter is love, L, love. So in 2011, I was training for a half Ironman. I was thinking about this word, and I was thinking back in 2011. I don't know why, but during that season, I was running a ton. I was running 14 miles a day, and I decided the best way for me to do this is to run back and forth from work. So I'm working at New Spring at the time, and I'm running down this road, 81, and you can kind of see it off in the church off in the distance, the Anderson campus and our new central offices. And I saw, as I'm running, I kind of saw this like thing in the road, and I'm like, what is this thing? And so like I was getting closer and I was getting closer, and all of a sudden I realized it was a dead deer in the suicide lane. And as I'm getting closer, I'm thinking to myself, ugh, like somebody needs to move that thing, and finally I got closer and closer, and I realized that I needed to move it, and so I walked over to it and I grabbed its dead carcass leg, and it's disgusting, and I dragged it off the side of the road. And it made me realize in that moment that love is not always something like being nice and being kind, but sometimes it's removing the dead things that stand between us and progress. When people see the dead things, they can't see the progress that God wants for them, right? So man, I'm telling you, man, what are the dead things that you need to remove that will help the people on your team and on your family to see who Jesus is and the progress that he has in store for you? Okay, all right, unique. The guy just said it a minute ago. He was talking about being unique. Listen, Psalm 139, you are handcrafted by the Creator, right? There are things that you can do that nobody else can do. I believe that this room right here are some of the movers and shakers of the church, right? You have a unique thumbprint on many, many, many things that the church does. You talk to more people than anybody, right? And so I'm telling you, man, focus on your strengths, evaluate your weaknesses, and get together with your team, because I'm telling you, if you do this, not only will it maximize your team's efficiency, but it's going to create a culture that people want to be a part of because you start operating out of your strength. Okay, all right. Almost done here. Last letter is E, excellence, okay? So I work with a lot of churches. I help them do like leadership development stuff and onboarding processes. And so whenever we're working through this stuff, this word comes up all the time, excellence. And so here's the deal. I think it's important that we focus on this word, not necessarily on what it is, but on what it does, okay? So if you don't have a definition for excellence, you can borrow mine until you have one, okay? But this is my definition of excellence. Excellence destroys distractions for the sake of the vision. I'm going to repeat that again. You need to write this down, okay? Excellence destroys distractions for the sake of the vision. So here's the deal. What are the distractions that you can destroy that would help people see the vision? And your team, in the entire organization. Because as you destroy the distractions, people begin to see the vision. And when the vision is clear and concise and compelling, it draws people to see something greater than themselves, and they're expectant to want to be a part of it, right? And so this is a way that you can do that. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to forget your title, system admin director or IT director, and I want you to take on a new title. This is like my new tech title, okay? It's called the Distraction Destroyer. Like, somebody print the shirts right now and let's get it for the next conference, okay? I'm telling you, man, this is your new title. Destroy the distractions so people can see the vision. That is how you can impact your culture and from behind the scenes. Okay, so let's talk really quick about culture. Culture is what your environments say you value. Oh, okay, I still got 55 seconds. But so here's the deal. How can you how can you make an impact on your culture from behind the scenes? Very simple. We're gonna go through it really quick. The victory's been won, right? Right? Yeah, come on. Okay, spend time with Jesus daily. Do this. If you have not spent time with Jesus today, do it before you go home. Do it tomorrow. Do it the next day. It will wow you if you focus on Jesus like this. You know this, but I'm telling you, it's hard in a busy, busy world. Okay, love others by removing the dead things that stand in the way of progress. And then lastly, go be the best you that God's called you to be. When I started Culture Bus, I remember one of my best friends said, listen, don't compare yourself to other ministries. Don't think about any other people. Go be the best you that you can be. And so I'm commissioning you to do that today. And then lastly, be a distraction destroyer. Okay, I'm out of time. Bye.
That was awesome, wasn't it? It was great stuff. I love these talks that we just heard. This really ties in nicely with the information I'm going to share with you as well. My name is Mark DeMoss, and I have the privilege of serving with the Fellowship One team with ActiveNetwork. So anybody using Fellowship One or Service U? All right, cool. Well, all right. Nice to see you. So I previously, in my prior life, I had the privilege of serving for 16 years on staff at my former church, Northridge Church in the Detroit metropolitan area. Anybody here from Michigan? Yeah, all right, Michigan. You got to show the hand, right? Show where you are in the state of Michigan. When I relocated to Texas, I told them, hey, I'm from Michigan, and if you know anybody from Michigan, they'll show you. I lived right here in the Detroit metropolitan area. How do you do that in Texas? And they showed me that in Texas, you can do it sort of like that. It kind of works, a little bit like Texas, and now I live up here in Dallas. So anyhow, is there another state that can possibly do that? Show it by hand gesture, huh? Not that I know of. All right, cool. Yeah, with appropriate hand gestures, right? That's great. So for the past 6 years now, I've been able to serve with Fellowship One and with the professional services team. So we have around 22 people on our team that provide consulting services, implementation services, and the training services as churches try to make their church information systems get up and running. In our case, on Fellowship One, but over the years at Northridge Church, we changed from system to system to system. And how many of you ever changed systems, church information systems? Yeah, that's a lot of fun, huh? A lot of fun. Well, one of the cool things that we get to do over these 6 years, we've helped, my 6 years, 10 years, our company's been doing it. We've helped thousands and thousands of churches make that transition and try to really get the maximum out of their church information system. We're in this really unique position to have served alongside of these churches and to see best practices and to be able to share those best practices back with other churches. And so that's a little bit of what I want to share with you today. And just a couple of gleanings that we've been able to pick up along the way, and hopefully you can put these to use in your church as well. There's this concept that we've been thinking about a lot over the 10 years. It's different from the concept in business. In business, the idea a lot of times with information technology is, hey, what's our return on investment? Like, based on the cost that we're going to have to invest into this tech, what kind of profit or what kind of benefits are we going to get out of this, right? So we get ROI out of it. A lot of times the goal is, what's the most expensive component in most business budgets? It's the employee cost, right? So the personnel. So how can I get more tech and reduce my personnel costs? Well, it's completely different when it comes to the church, the kingdom. And so we've been thinking about this idea of return on ministry, because that's what we're called to do, is to minister, right? And so we look at it more from a measurement of what's the kingdom effectiveness of our information system, of our IT, of our technology that we're deploying at the church. And most of the time it has nothing to do with reducing personnel costs. It actually has to do with making the tech and making the information more accessible to our volunteers and to a lot more users and a lot more people. So a very different way of looking at it, return on ministry. What we've found is that the churches that are really effective in taking information and being able to leverage it to maximize ministry, they tend to approach not just the tech, but they tend to look at the tech in terms of a little bit larger perspective, more of a systems approach. And so, of course, being in the church, well, we like to call that the systems trinity, right? So they look at it more from the standpoint of, yeah, we've got tech, we've got information systems, we've got that, but there's some other components that we need to look at. And in a lot of these breakout sessions that I've sat in on, I've heard people make reference to this. It's been very cool to see that they've referred to, hey, there's also a big component that's the people component. It might be the volunteers that are going to be using our check-in system. It might be the volunteers that are needing to get the tech set up to be able to have their recovery ministry meeting this evening in the room and be able to put something up on the projector, right? So there's the people component, and then there's also this other component, which is a lot of work, which is the process component. And I've heard some refer to that in these sessions, talking about, well, you know, it's one thing to train the people, it's another thing to have the technology, but what about actually walking through the steps and the sequence and making sure there's a consistent process to what we're doing here in the church using this tech? So let's unpack that just a little bit more. Did anybody get a cool car when you were in high school from your family? None of us. I have asked this question all over the place so far. It's something about being in the church business, I guess, that we just don't get those cool toys like that. Wouldn't that be sweet, though? That sweet technology. I'm from Motown, originally Detroit, so love cars. So that sweet technology for that kid, man, how cool, huh? Wouldn't that be fun to get that? So that's the right tech for the right person, the right user. But a lot of times, you know, we'll deploy this great technology and wonder, why aren't the users getting the benefit out of it? Why aren't they using it? Right? And a lot of times it's more like this. It's great tech, but it's way beyond what that user could use, right? So he's loving it, but he can't even use it. I mean, he'd be better off on a bicycle, right? So sometimes taking the tech down a little bit so that it's accessible to the volunteers might be a better fit. And then there's the other users, right, that just haven't been trained and they're just scared to death by the technology. They're like, what do I do with this thing? You know. And she'd be better off in the car seat, I think, actually. So the training component's a big part of it too, right? Getting them to use the tech. So that's people and technology, but what if we switch gears here and we take a look at people and process? You know, process is just this sequence of events that's organized to achieve an outcome. And usually if I'm driving down the road, my goal is to get through these intersections and be able to make it to my destination, right? But in this case, we got technology, but it's all awash and it's a mess and it's strewn all over the place. You ever feel like that when you're dealing with some of your church information systems? You're kind of like, well, check-in works great, but nobody can actually get the information out of the system to report on it, to do anything effective to minister to these new families, right? So a lot of times we've got to talk to our people about what is the process and what's the goal when a family walks up and they're new to the church and we get them checked in, and how do we want to be able to follow up with them and think through those steps and help our teams think through those steps. That presentation yesterday from Willow Creek for check-in, was that not awesome? That was great. And I loved how he showed that shot of, you know, originally it was the guy that was running check-in that was kind of behind the computer and it wasn't the effect they wanted to create. And then how they changed that and they put their people out there and gave them the ability to make it an open and welcoming environment. So that's the idea. This is the intersection that I travel through going to work every day. And it was under construction, so it was chaotic. But now it's all nice and well signaged. And I know if I enter this exit, I'm going to get off at the right place and head in the right direction. And that's what we want to do with our ministry processes, is line them up, help our teams think through the steps. Now, this is a little quiz to ask ourselves, kind of bring it home. Okay? Do not answer this out loud. This is just between you and the Lord. So here's the first question. True or false? Can't read it on my screen. Each ministry has identified a champion team member, you know, representative from that ministry, and we meet together regularly to maintain our church information systems. So do you have that going on at your church? We find that's a best practice in very effective churches, is that they have a representative from each ministry that gets together and talks about these things. Number 2, what % of the users of your technology have completed the training? Do you have training? Do they know they need to be trained? Have they been assigned to it? And so anyhow, you get the point. Number 3, how many ministry processes are documented? So we've got a first-time guest process. We have a process to move people from attendee to member. We have a first-time visitor check-in process. And we've got the steps identified, right? How many ministries in your church have those things identified and those processes written out? The beauty of having a process that's written out is you can step back and evaluate it and talk about it as a team and say, hey, we want to change something. We want to improve it. We want to retrain everybody to this new way of doing this particular ministry. Number 4, list the ministry involvement data. I just use a generic term, ministry involvement. Data that's recorded in our church management system. That ministry involvement can take on all kinds of forms. You know, it might be, hey, how many members do we have in the church and do we have record of them? How about patterns of attendance? Who's attending the recovery ministry? Who's attending the children's ministry? Serving. Who are the people that are volunteering and in what areas of our church? Are we capturing all that in our data system? Giving is certainly a big indicator of people's involvement and commitment in the church. Follow-up contacts, are those taking place, and who's being contacted, and what's the outcome of those follow-ups? And then the last question, true or false, we have at least one certified champion over our information system. I just want to encourage you that these churches are identifying these champion team members in their ministry, and many times it's not the IT director. It's another person that they've appointed to handle it on their behalf. Thank you very much for the opportunity to share with you.
Aha. Okay. So my name is Travis Phipps. I work for Solerant. We are an organization. Our tagline is serving those who serve. Our mission in life is to serve churches, ministries, nonprofits, specifically right now in helping with IT services and needs. And that ranges from being the IT department, a completely outsourced engagement, to helping just with various projects, implementing wireless, doing an Exchange migration or Office 365 migration, because I never want to do another on-prem Exchange migration, because why would I, right? Office 365 is awesome. We heard Logan earlier tell us all about it. Wow, this is a dead audience. That's going to be rough for me. I need feedback. I don't present well. I talk, and I talk with my hands. Thank you. I appreciate that very much. So I am specifically going to talk about lions, tigers, and Dirsync. Yeah. Thank you. You know, some people had commented that I should include oh my on the slide, and I thought, no. I know my audience is going to help me with that piece. Thank you so much. Okay, so Office 365, I don't have to talk about this because Logan did a great job earlier. Short version, it's Microsoft hosting your server infrastructure for Exchange, SharePoint, Lync, and then you can subscribe to other software, Office, Project, things like that. Okay, so now we all know what that is. So what are we talking about now? What we're talking about is how do you connect and log into that thing? Now, we're all familiar with you sit down at a computer, you have to log in. You have a username and a password. And in most environments, we have Active Directory. That is our centralized authentication system. Now, for those of you with heavy Mac investment, you may not be utilizing Active Directory so much for your end user authentication, but you probably still are for your email system, which is probably Microsoft Exchange because it's pretty cheap for nonprofits to get Microsoft Exchange. Well, with Office 365, users have to log in, right? We all agree you need a good password on your Office 365 email system. So Microsoft has different ways you can implement that. And these are those 3 ways. So the first option you'll see listed is cloud identity. Short version, username and password is just in the cloud, unique, there's no tie-in to any other system. So that would be similar to if your church management system is externally hosted, you probably have something similar. You've got your password for logging into F1 or CCB or something like that, and then you might also have your password for Active Directory. Separate identity, that's a cloud identity. Real quick, I'm going to make an aside. You'll notice I've put red X's on the word Windows here. This particular graphic is a little older. Microsoft has a habit, especially now, of changing the names of their product offerings often. They started out by calling this the Azure Active Directory system. They decided they liked the word Windows, so they put Windows Azure Active Directory. And then about 6 months later, they decided, no, we don't like the word Windows there. They took it back away. So now it is called the Azure Active Directory. I just don't like the new graphic that they have for that. So ignore that the word Windows is there. The second option is called directory synchronization. That's take a copy of what you have in Active Directory and replicate it into the cloud. Okay? So there's a sync process to make that happen. We're going to get into some details of that here in a little bit and what that looks like. And then the third option is called federated identity or federation. And a lot of times people hear about Office 365 and they hear that you can have this cloud identity, this separate password, and then they hear that you have federation and you can just go all in and essentially make the Azure Active Directory system just an extension of your on-premise Active Directory system, and everybody thinks that's awesome. Well, I'm going to tell you why that's not so awesome. All right, so I'm going to go in a little odd order here. I'm going to try to explain what I think is a logical process that we walk through every time we sit down with a client and they say, we want to do Office 365. I'm like, yes, that's great. It's free for you as a nonprofit. Why would you not want to go to Office 365? Now we have to talk about how people are going to log into it. So here's how that conversation goes. We start out and we talk about federation because everybody's heard of it. They think it's what they want. Here's the way federation works in a nutshell. When a user needs to log in to Office 365, their authentication has to pass through the on-premise Active Directory back to Office 365 before they are actually authenticated and allowed to log in. Now, that doesn't matter if it's ActiveSync, OWA, Outlook on the desktop. That's the process. So what that means is this is a critical component of logging in to Office 365 if you are federated. Okay? All right. You with me so far? All right. So why would you want to do federation? Well, the reason you would want to do federation is because your user experience would be identical to what they experience today. It's called single sign-on, and what that means is you log into Windows, and when you open Outlook, you're automatically authenticated because Kerberos is awesome, and that works with federation, right? If you happen to be using SharePoint, God bless you. If you happen to be using SharePoint, which we do, anyway, you open the browser, you're automatically authenticated. It's awesome for the users. It is fully integrated, and there's no extra password prompts, okay? So why would you not want federation? Because it's a pain in the rear to set up and to maintain. Going back to the slide previously where we talked about you have to have your Active Directory always available, well, what happens if the power goes out? What happens if the internet line gets hit by a backhoe? Well, that's kind of hard to keep your Active Directory online. So the recommendation is you have to implement your own set of domain controllers in Azure or some other cloud data center or some other secondary data center. And so now you've got to establish a VPN connection from your on-premise infrastructure. You've got to maintain this as well. You've got to keep up with that VPN, and all that is just so your users can continue to use email if the power goes out at the main campus. I am talking fast, and I'm going to have to talk faster. So it's a real pain. And Microsoft will tell you their official stance, their official recommendation is if you have less than 2,000 users, don't use federation. Okay? I have talked to, I think, every partner here that is doing Office 365, and every one of them will tell you it's not worth the pain. Okay? So federation is not worth it. So the other option is cloud identity, and I'm going to fly through this one because it's what we already talked about. It's really simple to implement because you just go create a user account, create a password, done. Right? So it makes it very simple on you from an IT standpoint. Plus, it gives you the option for those of you that maybe don't have expiring passwords in Active Directory because somebody thought that was a bad idea. Maybe you could go ahead and implement that in the Office 365 system and convince your users that, hey, this is just how it is with Office 365. And then eventually you can actually implement better password controls within your local Active Directory as well. So this is a great way to step into that. So what's the downside to cloud identity? It's yet another password. Yet another password for your users. So now they got Facebook, they got their bank account, they got your church management system, they got AD, and now they have email. Okay? Arguably, they're kind of used to that already. All right, so Dirsync, directory synchronization. The quick version is take a copy of what's in Active Directory, use the Dirsync tool to copy it into the cloud. So if this is offline, that's okay. Users can still log in because the login process is strictly to the cloud. Sounds awesome, right? It sounds like we just solved all the complications of federation and we fixed the fact that they have a separate password. If only that were true. Microsoft will tell you that that's how easy it is. I am going to tell you it's a little more complicated than that, okay? So the pro is it is the same password. Now users, if they change their AD password within a matter of minutes, it's now in the cloud. However, it introduces arguably some pretty complex management on the back end. What you have to recognize is that if you're taking what's in Active Directory and replicating it to the cloud, then that means any updates that you make have to be made locally in Active Directory, and then they replicate to the cloud. So for instance, if you need to add a new user, you create that new user account in Active Directory, and you wait. We talked earlier, Keith mentioned, you wait. Because by default, Dirsync runs every 3 hours. Can you imagine waiting 3 hours to create your new user in the cloud? That would be ridiculous, right? So raise your hand if you like PowerShell. There is an option to go run a PowerShell command to immediately force that synchronization to happen. So now your new user process is getting a little more complicated, but you can do it. Group management. If you want to manage groups, manage who's in a distribution group, gets a little tricky. If the distribution group was first created in Active Directory and then replicated to the cloud, you have to manage the distribution group membership within Active Directory, okay? However, if the distribution group was created in the cloud, you can't manage it in Active Directory because it doesn't exist there. You manage it in the cloud only. So, oh my, how do I know which one? Well, they'll tell you when you do it wrong. So you go try to manage it in the cloud and you can't. Oh, okay, I got to do that one in AD. I really have to talk faster. I didn't think I was going to get this close. Oh, yeah, by the way, you know how you manage mail attributes within Active Directory? Exchange management tools. That's the only option. So you got to keep Exchange on-prem just to be able to manage your AD, and now I'm out of time. Should I keep going? Okay, I'm sorry. I'll keep talking fast. So the short version is that the management aspect is what becomes more difficult with Dirsync. It's not impossible. We certainly have clients that do it. I will tell you we have more clients that choose not to do it because it does become a challenge. And your new user process is pretty complicated. By the way, last month, as I prepared for this presentation, Microsoft released a new tool that is slated to replace Dirsync. They are calling that the Azure Active Directory Synchronization Services. At this time, it synchronizes some attributes, but the one big glaring thing it doesn't synchronize, guess what? The password. So kind of pointless, right? They have stated that it will be the tool to replace Dirsync. Probably by the end of this year, it will have password synchronization capabilities, at which point they will start to phase out Dirsync. It is going to solve some of the management complications, one of the biggest being that you can now, with AAD Sync, you can make changes in the cloud that will synchronize back to Active Directory. So now you get a two-way synchronization process, whereas Dirsync today can only go from on-prem into the cloud. So that's something to watch out for. That is coming soon. No official timeline just yet. If you're interested in exploring or thinking more about Dirsync and how to authenticate in Office 365, this is an excellent blog post. I will tell you the information from Microsoft that you get officially via TechNet articles and things like that, they gloss over some of this and they make it sound all rosy and simple. Go find the blogs that are written by the Microsoft engineers and MVPs that implement this stuff. That's where you want to get your information from. They're going to tell you the truth. It still comes off a little rosy and a little jaded, but if you read it clearly, you'll understand that they're really telling you the ins and the outs. If you wanted this link, I have posted this slide deck at learn.solerant.com/CITRT. So feel free to grab it. There's a couple links throughout the presentation. Thanks for letting me go over. I'm so sorry.